So we're starting today Perek Lamed Ches, which is on page 98. So in the last few parakim, starting from Perek Lamed Hey, starting from chapter 35 and through Perek Lamed Zayin to chapter 37, the three parakim of Lamed Hey, Lamed Vav, Lamed Zayin, so Alter Rebbe introduces us to the philosophy behind the primacy of Maisa, behind the primacy of action and Yiddishkeit. HaMaisa hu ha'ikar, le'hamedr shu ha'ikar el ha'maisa. Why is it that in Yiddishkeit is such a action-oriented way of life? Torah is so much about Maisa, what to do and what not to do. And the reason for that is, this is connected to the very reason for the creation of this world and the creation of all the worlds, that Hashem wants a dira b'tachtonim. Hashem wanted a dwelling place in the lowest realms, in the physical. And how do we do that? Primarily that is through action. That is through, because through our actions we interact with the physical world, we elevate the physical world, we bring holiness into the physical world, and that's why we're so into Maisa. And even though Dr. Rebbe ends off as we ended last year, even though there's the idea of a Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam, the idea that Torah study is the equivalent of all the other mitzvahs, which would seem to contradict the idea of a Maiso Ikar, so Dr. Rebbe explains that Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam, what that means. Mostly that means that in terms of the benefit of the neshama, for the neshama's ability to connect to Hashem, in that area, there is no greater tool for the neshama to connect to Hashem than Torah study. And in that area, Torah study greatly surpasses all the other mitzvahs. No other mitzvah achieves that level of connection of the neshama with Hashem as does Torah study. However, in terms of our purpose here in the world, in terms of what we're here for, what we're trying to accomplish over there, Hamaisu Ikar, the main thing is the action, because that's why Hashem put us down here in this world. And with that, we'll start Perek Lamed Ches on page 98. V'hine, im kol hanal, with all that we've explained up until this point, Yuvan Heitav will understand well, Psak halacha, the halacha ruling ha'arucha betalmud u'poiskim, the halacha which is laid out very clearly in the Gemara and the works of the poiskim. The hirhur lav kidibur dami. That thought is not considered like dibur, is not considered like speech. Usually when we think of thought, which Hebrew word do we associate with thought? Machshava. So what's the difference between machshava and hirur? Machshava generally refers to, when you're thinking, your thought process. Hirur is when you're thinking specific words or chains of words in your mind. So for example, if I were in my mind to think a bracha, in my mind I'm thinking Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam, that is hirur. The focus there is on the words that you're actually thinking. So in halacha, forget about machshava. Even hirur, even the thought, when you're thinking specific words, that does not have the halachic equivalence as dibur. And therefore, v'imkara kriyish b'be machshavta yibali be'levad, if a person thought kriyishma, in his thought, he said the words of Krishma in his thought, and ubeliba with his heart. In other words, also he invested his heart, his avas Hashem, his yiras Hashem, his feelings, his emotion into it, but levad alone. B'chol koach kavanase, but you invested in it the entire power of your kavana. So lo yatsa yedei chayvasa, you have not fulfilled the mitzvah of saying Krishma. V'tzarech lachzer v'likrish, and you have to go and you have to say the Krishma once again. Furthermore, the same thing is true but Birchas Hamazon when it comes to Birchas Hamazon, which is Deiraisa, Ubishar brachas and all the other brachas that are Dirabanan. And when it comes to Birchas Hamazon or the other brachas, that if you just say them in your mind but you don't articulate them, you don't verbally say the words, you weren't Yotze and you have to do it again. And this is something which is very interesting. What is the Teuchen? What is the point of Kriyishma? As we know, Kriyishma, the Teuchen, the point of Kriyishma is Kabbalas Oil Malchus Shamayim. Kabbalas acceptance of the yoke of heaven. And there's the acceptance of the yoke of mitzvahs, Kabbalah, so the oil of the mitzvahs. So isn't that the main thing? So if that is the main thing, then as long as you were mekabel el malchus shamayim, when you say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, when you say the word Echad, you have to have in mind that the one Hashem, that He is. You have to be mamluchim. You have to accept Him as the King and realize that He is the King of the seven heavens and the earth and all the four directions. And then you have Vahafta, which is the Kabbalah of the mitzvahs. So the main thing is that the person twice a day accepts upon him or herself the yoke of heaven, the yoke of the mitzvahs. And why is the verbalizing? Why is the saying of the words important? Birchas HaMazon. What is the point of Birchas HaMazon? Birchas HaMazon is V'chalta v'tzavata v'irachta Hashem aleikacha. The idea of gratitude, that you eat, and after you're satiated, after you're full, you have to express your gratitude to Hashem. Now, to a fellow human being, if you don't express your gratitude, if you just think your gratitude, if after you finish eating, you think thank you to your wife for the meal, it's not going to get you too far.
I mean, lacks communication.
It's right, but Hashem,
you can't convey gratitude without being
that's to fellow human beings. You have to convey it either verbally or at the very least by writing something down or by a text. But Hashem,
Hashem knows how to read your mind.
Hashem knows how to read the mind.
The Arabs, after they finish eating their bird, how bigger is the bird? It means you more modern.
But I want to take it a step further. When you say thank you, is the main thing the words?
The intention.
Main thing is the intention. So let's say you're saying thank you to someone for something, and for our, theoretically, let's say that person was a mind reader and he was able to read your mind and realize that you're not grateful at all. Would the words thank you mean anything?
No, definitely not.
Because the words thank you, their importance is only in as much as they reflect the feeling that you have in your heart. So the main thing is the feeling, the thought.
Yeah.
So why do you have to say it? Because you're dealing with a fellow human being, and the fellow human being can't read your mind. But when you're talking to Hashem, when you're saying Shema, when you're Birchas HaMazon and you're making a bracha,
he can read. He knows what you're thinking of.
So dispense with the words, because they're not important anyways. In other words, again, in our communication with our fellow, the only reason why we have to say the words is because the person can't read our mind and our heart. If the person would be able to read our mind and our heart, the words would be superfluous. So why is it that not only aren't the words superfluous, but if you don't say the words, you weren't yotze and you have to say it again?
But even if you say the words and the heart isn't in the right place exactly, then you're still yotze, Even it goes further even.
We'll get there.
But don't we have mitzvahs, strichas, kavana? And if you have no kavana, then you don't.
Mitzvahs, strichas, kavana, is that so simple?
Doesn't mean that.
It's machlokes harishayim. It's not so simple.
But let's say
we'll get there soon. But tefillah and the same thing. So what did we say so far? So far we spoke about Kriya Shema.
Birkat HaMazon.
Right? So we didn't talk about learning yet, did we?
No, we said
Kriya Shema and the brachas. And now when it comes to davening, tefillah.
Talmud. Lav Kedib is not talking about learning? No, not yet.
We actually, in last Perek Lamed Zayin, he talked about learning Torah. It has to be Akima Sasa Havamaisa. But here we're talking about the mitzvahs of Kriya Shema and brachas, and now talks about davening, which is interesting. If you notice that he says that Birchas HaMazon is deraisa, and the other brachas are derabanan, and then he puts in tefillah as its own category. Yeah. Is tefillah deraisa or is tefillah derabanan?
The rabbanon, but that's Anshe Knesset Gdolo is Mesakin.
So it's not so pashut whether it's deraisa or derabanan. Anshe Knesset Gdolo or Mesakin, that's the 3 times a day, the format.
Yeah, the words also they were Mesakin.
That's part of the format. So sometimes tefillah could be deraisa, sometimes it could be derabanan. So therefore, the Alter Rebbe doesn't include it in either one of them. When it comes to davening, here davening is unbelievable. Davening is unbelievable. Because
first 3 brachas.
Davening, you have to say it with your mouth. If you said the davening, you articulated the words "V'lei kivan libay." You didn't have the kavana. You didn't have the pirush hamilos. Didn't think the meaning of the words. Yatsa, yidei chivasa, you're yatsa. B'diavad, obviously it's b'diavad. That's not the way. That's not the preferred way of davening. That's not the ideal way of davening. But b'diavad, In other words, in hindsight, if you've already done daven, then you did not have in mind the words, you're Yetza. Ve'ein sarach la'achzer, and you don't have to go back and repeat the davening. Levad me pasuk rishon shel Kriya Shema, aside from the first pasuk of Kriya Shema, that if you didn't have in mind the meaning of the words, you do have to go back. And bracha rishon shel tefillah Shemona Esrei. And the first bracha of Shemona Esrei, which even though that's the halacha, is brought down the Gemara, L'Peil and Shulchan Aruch, it says that if you didn't have kavana by the first bracha of Shemona Esrei, you don't repeat it. And there's a very interesting reason. He says because the chances are that you will repeat it the second time you also won't have kavana, so there's no point in repeating it. Okay, the Isa Bereish Perek Beis the Brachas, as we find at the beginning of the Gemara, in the beginning of the second Perek of Brachas, Ad Kan Mitzvah Kavana, up until the end of the Hashem Echad, right? In the first pasuk of Shema, the mitzvah is you must have kavana mekan ve'elach, and from here on, mitzvah's kriya, you need to read v'chulu. This is really amazing. That davening, that if you didn't have in mind the kavana and you said the words, you're fine. You're fine. And if you had the kavana and you didn't say the words, you weren't Yetza. Why is this so surprising? Take a look at the mitzvah and the Torah. How do we know? You said that it's a mitzvah Rabbanan, but we know that ultimately the Torah, the mitzvah tefillah is sourced ultimately in the Torah. Where? Because the pasuk says, that we have to serve Hashem with all our hearts. And on this the Chazal say, Ezehu Aveda Shabalev. What does it mean to serve Hashem with your heart? That means that you have to daven. So it doesn't say anywhere in the Torah that you have to say any words. It doesn't say it. When it comes to Kriya Shema or Limdat Torah, it says V'dibarta bam. V'dibarta bam means
You actually have to speak.
you have to say it. So I can understand. Okay, I can understand somewhat. You have to say the words of Kriya Shema. It says V'dibarta bam. V'dibarta means you have to speak. It doesn't say about davening that you have to speak anything. What does it say? What is the gather? What is the gather of tefillah? The gather of the mitzvah is to serve Hashem with your heart. And even though that is the parameters of the mitzvah is the service of the heart, still we say, if you served only with your heart, you weren't Yetza. But if you said the words, even if your heart was somewhat absent, you were Yetza. That's very surprising. So the truth is that what you said about mitzvahs, this is true about every single mitzvah. And every single mitzvah, if you did a mitzvah without kavana, you were yotza. Even though there's machlokes, mitzvah strichas kavana, mitzvah ein strichas kavana, there are many different levels of kavana. Many different levels of kavana. When it says mitzvah strichas kavana, what does that mean? Even according to the opinion that mitzvah strichas kavana, what does that mean?
You have intent to do the mitzvah.
To have intent to do the mitzvah, that's not kavana. It's not the kavana we're talking about over here. When I eat, in other words, mitzvah strichas kavana means that when I eat matzah, I have to have in mind that I'm doing this to be yotza the mitzvah of matzah, as opposed to if I thought that I'm snacking on something. I forgot it's Pesach. I forgot it's matzah. I ate it. So if I say mitzvah sein strichas kavana, I wasn't yotza. If, and that's again, it's not a pashta thing. It's a big machlokes rishonim, and when it's applied and when it's not applied. But the kavana of the mitzvah, the reason for the mitzvah, the avas Hashem, the yiras Hashem, the intent of the mitzvah, that there's no question. If you do a mitzvah without that kavana, you are yotza. Because the action is the main thing. The only thing is, mitzvah strichas kavana means that there has to be an awareness that I'm doing a mitzvah. It's a very basic, very, very basic level of kavana. We're not talking about that. Here we're talking kavana, we're talking more about the intent of the mitzvah, the desire, the passion, the enthusiasm, the excitement, the love of Hashem, the fear of Hashem. Thinking about the toichin of the mitzvah, the substance of the mitzvah. Okay. Hashem told us that, there are a few mitzvahs, by the way, where kavana is integral to the mitzvah. Sorry, what? Tefillin, l'mashal, tefillin is one of those. where the kavana is not only a separate thing. That's why in Shulchan Aruch it says the whole v'yikav and the kavana is supposed to have. Sukkah, where it says that l'man yedu de'risechem, that it's part. But even over there, the kavana is it's a tanai in the mitzvah. It's a tanai in the mitzvah. The mitzvah itself is the action. But what's even more amazing is these mitzvahs that we're talking about over here. Because any mitzvah which is associated with speech, by definition, what is speech? What is speech? Speech is there only to reveal something which is inside of you to others. If there is no others, you don't need speech. So why is speech so any mitzvah which is associated with speech, by definition, it means there's something that's going on inside of you. And that's the main thing, because speech is only there to reveal that. So why is it important to say the words? If it's going on inside of you and Hashem is aware of it, then that should be the main thing. So you can't compare that to the other mitzvahs which are action mitzvahs. So let's do one side. Hainu Mishum, 4 lines from the top of page Nun. So the explanation of this all is, what is the reason for this? Because as explained at length in last Perek, the neshama on its own doesn't require any rectification through mitzvahs. The neshama did not come down here in the world to be able to do mitzvahs to benefit itself. The neshama is fine. It always was fine. It didn't come down to benefit itself. Rak. Why did the neshama come down? Why did Hashem send the neshama down here? Lahamshich oir, to bring down godliness, l'sakein, and thereby to rectify and to elevate nefesh hachiyunis, the animal soul, v'haguf, and the body, al yidei ois yis hadibur, through the words, shanefesh medaberes, that when the soul speaks, the nefesh ha'amis speaks. Behei maitzoi sapel, with the 5 different ways that a person speaks. You know, the letters are divided into, some letters come out through the tongue, and some of the lips, and some is the teeth, and some is the palate, and some is, there's a 5th one I'm missing, right? There's teeth, tongue, lips, palate.
The garment.
Throat.
Right, the throat, very good. Achem, Agar, Aleph, Ches, Hey, Ayin,
Like
the throat.
They have these.
No, even by us, Aleph. Aleph is not from any, right? Comes from the throat. So when we speak, what you're doing is, every time that you say a bracha, and you're using those, so you're elevating your teeth, and your lips, and your palate, and your throat, and the 5th one, right? Whichever one, right? We mentioned 5, right? Again, there's the lips, the teeth, the tongue, the palate, and the throat, right? The same as when it comes to action-oriented mitzvahs, which the body does, b'shar evri haguf, with the other limbs of the body. So yeah, what is davening and what is Shema? They all have these deep spiritual ideas behind them, whether it's Kabbalas Malchus Shamayim, accepting the yoke of heaven, accepting the yoke of mitzvahs, whether it's davening and the kavana and connecting to Hashem. And these are all beautiful things. But what is a mitzvah? A mitzvah. We discussed in Perek Lamed Hey, in chapter 35, we explained how for the person to connect to Hashem, love of Hashem and fear of Hashem, and having, all these, having this incredible emotional relationship with Hashem, doesn't connect you to Hashem.
You need mitzvahs.
You need mitzvahs.
You
need a mitzvah. The only way that a person can connect to Hashem is through a mitzvah. As you know, the word mitzvah is related to the word tzavsa. The word tzavsa in Aramaic means a connection. Tzavsa v'chibur. We connect to Hashem only through a mitzvah.
So how do you get Yiras Shamayim? How do you get these emotions through a physical act? That's something you have to work in your mind. You have to contemplate.
Hold it. So connection to Hashem comes only through a mitzvah. And that means practically that Hashem is infinite. Hashem is the greatest of the great and the infinite and above and transcends and beyond everything. And the human being is nothing. So So how does the human being connect to Hashem? The answer is, how do you connect to Hashem? Because Hashem created the world for a purpose. And then Hashem turns to you and says, I need you. I need you to help me. I can't. That's the interesting thing. Hashem created the world. He wants a dir b'tachtoinen. He wants a dwelling place over here in this world, and He can't do that alone. Why can't He do it alone? I thought He's kol yachol. He's omnipotent. Yeah, but His plan is what Hashem's desire was, and this desire is by choice. So it's not a essential intrinsic limitation, because this is what He chose. Hashem wanted a world wherein the world would accept Him of its own volition. A world which is dark, a world which is cold, a world which is, devoid, openly devoid of holiness and kedusha, a world that would accept Him. He didn't want to impose Himself on a world. He wanted a world to accept Him. A world, and He wanted us. And we do that through doing mitzvahs.
Why is that important to Hashem?
We don't know. We don't know. That's what He wanted. Hashem wanted a dir b'tachtonim. Why He wanted a dir b'tachtonim? That, as we said, the Alter Rebbe said, "If a taiva is kinkashenish." We don't. When someone wants something, you can't ask why. That's what Hashem wanted. We know what He wanted. We don't know why He wanted it. Why? But that's the purpose of the creation of the whole world. So when Hashem turns to you and says, "I need you to do the mitzvah because I need you to elevate your portion in this world in order to do your part, in order to bring my dream, my fantasy, my desire, my original reason for creation, to bring it to fruition." At that moment, a connection is created between us and Hashem. So when you do a mitzvah, then you connect to Hashem and you become significant. Why? By way of the mitzvah, because Hashem created that connection, because Hashem gave you the mitzvah. In other words, we can't connect to Hashem of our own strength, of our own ability. We're too small, we're too puny. That's like, as we gave an example, a little bacteria that wants to have a relationship with a human being. It's and what separates us from Hashem is much greater than the separation of a little bacteria to a human being. Because the little bacteria, the human being, what's the difference? So one is a more complex and sophisticated structure of cells, and one is a little simpler, or a lot simpler. But they're both creations, and they're both organisms. And us to Hashem, the separation is unlimited. So what's the connection? The connection between us can only be when Hashem gives us a mitzvah, commandment, and says, I need you to do this, and suddenly there's a connection. Now, interestingly, we can just digress for a moment. What creates the connection?
Say it again.
When does a Yid become connected to Hashem? When he does a mitzvah.
That's what you're saying, or
You
you said that before.
Or when Hashem gives the mitzvah.
Wasn't it? If Hashem gives them, or what?
Or when the Yid does the mitzvah.
When you do.
When you do the mitzvah.
And before then there is no connection.
According to your definition, what you said before. No?
Intention, I agree with
We say, Afal pi shachata Yisraelhu. That even though a person sins, he's still a Yid. He's still connected.
No, but there's a lot of strands of connections. He severed, let's say, out of 10 strands, he severed 9 of them. There's one.
So that's definitely one way of looking at it. One way of looking at it, Afal pi shachata Yisraelhu, is that despite the fact that a Yid sins, he's still a Yid. Another way of looking at it, a much deeper way, which the Rebbe introduces, that you are a Yid because you sin. Now, before you take that out of context, okay?
I'm ready.
What does that mean? That means a goy can't sin. When a goy eats a ham sandwich, he has done nothing wrong. When a Yid eats a ham sandwich, a terrible thing. Why is it a terrible thing? Because Hashem wants you not to eat a ham sandwich. There is a connection there. When you sin, what you've done is demonstrated, you might want to say a negative connection. But the fact that Hashem wants you to do one thing or another, even before you actually make your choice, that already is a connection. Hashem coming to you and saying, please do this, creates a connection. And when you don't do it, if Chas v'Shalom you don't do it, and then Hashem is disappointed and sad that you didn't do it, the only reason why he's disappointed and sad is because there's a connection. A connection which he created.
You said the invitation is the connection.
The tzivui, right? The tzivui.
She's inviting you to do the tzivui. But the Goyim also have Shevet B'nai.
I know it's a separate. That's a separate. It's a different type of mitzvah. It's not only the Shevet B'nai is not just that they have quantitatively less mitzvahs. It's a different type of mitzvah. It's not a mitzvah which is meant to create connections. But that's not for now. It's not for now.
I mean, it's a matter of.
But obviously, as long as let's put it differently, the connection between a parent and a child, is it only there if the child gives the parent nachas? No, it's there. But so when the child gives the parent nachas, then it's a positive connection. Otherwise, it's a painful connection. But the connection is there. So when we do a mitzvah, then we're creating this positive connection with Hashem. Why does Hashem give us mitzvahs, as mentioned? Because He wants a dir b'tachtonim. That's why He gave us mitzvahs. So every mitzvah has to be connected with dir b'tachtonim. For me to connect to Hashem, it's because I'm doing what He wants. What does He want? He wants me to make a dir b'tachtonim. When I do what He wants, I connect to Him. When I'm davening, when I'm saying Krishma, when I'm saying a bracha, how am I making a dir b'tachtonim? Because when I daven, when I'm saying a Krishma, when I'm making a bracha, I'm speaking. And when I'm speaking, so first of all, I'm exerting energy from my animating soul, my nefesh habahamis. I don't know if there's anyone here who's a Baal Korach, who's read the Megillah. Anyone ever read the Megillah before? Okay, I've read the Megillah before. It's not easy. It sounds easy. We know that when a person is a spia, reading the Megillah in a shul, and there are a lot of people there, and it's a big shul, and there are kids, and the groggers are a little out of control. So we know that the person is basically screaming the time. But I'm telling you that even if the Baal Korach isn't screaming the entire time, even if you're doing a private laning for 2 people and they're adults and there isn't noise, when you finish reading the Megillah after half an hour, you're a little wiped. And if you read 3 times, you're in Gansen wiped. Speaking a half an hour straight, and it's more than anything. It's more than being a chazan, because it's nonstop. I'm talking about even a chazan or shani and kippur. It's more than laning on Shabbos because it's smaller pieces. Speaking takes energy. So number 1, when you speak, you're exerting energy from your nefesh. That energy is being elevated to Hashem. That's dir b'tachtonim right there. And then, as we mentioned, there's your teeth, and there's your lips, and there's your palate. All these things, all these physical things that you're using are becoming a dir b'tachtonim. So when you're davening, when you're learning, when you're saying a bracha, what is Hashem's interest in it? Is you speaking. If you're not speaking, you missed the point. There is no mitzvah there. You did you sat and you by Shema and you accepted the yoke of heaven and you accepted and you by the bracha you were thankful. These are all beautiful things and beautiful midas that you have and that you expressed, and you're being very spiritual. But did you connect Hashem? Which means, were you yotzei the mitzvah? Did you do the mitzvah? Did you connect? The answer is, did you make a dir b'tachtonim? If yes, Hashem says, I'm in, we're connected. That was the mitzvah. But if you didn't use your mouth, then you did a lot. It was really, really beautiful what you did. I'm sure you felt great and spiritual and grateful and all that stuff, but you didn't connect to Hashem, because to connect to Hashem, you have to do something which is part of His agenda. That's how we connect to Hashem. Not through, feeling holy and spiritual and beautiful, which is a very important, a very, very important point in Yiddishkeit. We don't connect to Hashem through going, onto a mountain in India and meditating and feeling spiritual and holy and meditating and emptying our minds and all that stuff. But we connect to Hashem only when we're being part of His plan. That's what a mitzvah is.
So Hannah did not do the right thing. רק קולה יישמע, שפתיה נאות וקולה לא יישמע. But she did not have this relation with Hashem.
She did. She spoke just that where Eli was. She was speaking quietly so that Eli couldn't hear her from his place. But from her we learned the halacha of davening, which is that we're supposed to daven Shemini Esrei lo, but you have to articulate it. There has to actually be
a whisper.
Yeah.
Supposed to be a
The
whisper.
lips got to be working.
There's got to be a whisper, some utterance.
Excuse me, why didn't you think that she did a mitzvah? You said she didn't do the right thing. Why?
Because Eli saw her from far, that her lips moving, but no voice.
But there was a voice. Just he didn't hear her.
Utterance. There was an utterance. I don't hear you. I can't hear you when you say daven Shemini Esrei. Can I hear you? So that's the same thing with Chana.
The reason why we're not supposed to daven out loud is because you're davening at shul and you daven out loud, you're going to disturb all the people around you. I think there's certain Hasidic communities we go to, they're not worried about them. They talk daven out loud. But if you're davening, okay, what?
Not.
But if you're davening, I'm not a Rav, I'm not passing, but I'm pretty sure that if you daven at home alone, for whatever reason you didn't make a minyan, you daven as loud as you want. So I believe, again, I'd have to check it up in Shulchan Aruch. But it's Miktani Amuna, it says someone davens loud.
Yeah,
I have to look into it.
You're pretending like Hashem doesn't hear, is not able to hear your tefillah. That's the thing it says that.
But Bechlal is brought down that not from Shemini Esrei, but the Fidig Rebbe talks a lot about davening bekoil. You know, koil ma'ir is kavana, the importance of davening bekoil. Yeah. So with this, we finished one sugya in Tanya. The sugya of the primacy of Maisa, because of Dira, Hashem wants Dira b'tachtoinim, and therefore HaMaisa or Iker, the main thing is Nadid, ki karev elecha adav mi'oid, beficha v'vavcha, la soisei. Right? Remember we said, it doesn't say beficha u'b'vavcha v'la soisei. It doesn't say in your mouth and in your heart and indeed, but beficha v'vavcha, in your mouth and in your heart, and la soisei, all that is in order to lead to deed, because the main thing is taka the deed. But obviously, this is only one half of the story. This is only one side of the coin. We cannot, chas v'shalom, walk out with the impression that if so, that Yiddishkeit is a very sterile religion.
A what?
A very sterile religion. And the main thing is, do what you're supposed to do what you have to do the mitzvah, say the words, and where your heart is doesn't really matter much. It's not about your heart, it's about dira b'tachtoinim. And that also is quite incorrect. And over the next few chapters, and actually, not only over the next few chapters, over here we're going to make a transition which is going to take us through chapter 50, which is almost to the end of Tanya. We are going to be focusing exclusively on the importance of Ahavas Hashem and Yiras Hashem and the importance of the heart, which the first thing, before we get into how to come to Ahavas Hashem and Yiras Hashem, which is going to be the topic of the later chapters, we first have to ask, why do I have to have Ahavas Hashem and Yiras Hashem? Why is it important? Why is my feeling important? Who cares what I feel? We've already established that the main thing is Hashem wants Adir B'tachtoinim. If Hashem wanted me to love Him and fear Him, if that was important, He should have kept me in Gan Eden. Over there I could love Hashem and fear Hashem to a much greater degree and a much greater extent than what I could do over here. Why did Hashem put us down here? We've established this over the last few chapters, because He wants a dira b'tachtoinim. He wants a dira, He wants a dwelling place in the physical world. So great, I have to do mitzvahs. Where does Ava v'yira, or to put it in different words, kavana, where does kavana come in? And Dr. Rebbe is going to use the word kavana from here on, but I want to bring out, the word kavana from here on doesn't mean, when you're saying Baruch Atah Hashem, blessed are you Hashem. Kavana means the motivation. The intent in doing the mitzvah. I am doing the mitzvah because, but ultimately the kavana has to be love of Hashem and fear of Hashem. My motivation in doing a mitzvah and my intent in doing a mitzvah is I'm serving Hashem because I love Him and because I fear Him. How and why is the kavana important? And that's what we're going to be doing inside. However, we are 8 lines on the top of page Nun.
Two dots, yeah.
Always keep that. It's hard to keep your finger on.
Yeshivish talk. 2 dots. We don't say colon. We say 2 dots.
Oh, yeah.
So a guy does a mitzvah for his own covet and wants to show off. What is that? That means he's not doing the mitzvah.
Keep on going.
No, like people can have different kavanah. A person wants to do does a mitzvah for he's doing for his own cover. He wants to show that he has a private agenda, not exclusively because Rabbanan to please the Kodesh Baruch Hu. Is that considered a mitzvah?
I don't know. Until now, we're saying that everything is about the Maisa, so it shouldn't make any difference what the kavana is. That's not correct, as we'll see as we go on. And the Alter Rebbe will be talking, not in this period, but in the end of the next chapter, in the end of Perek Lametes, we'll be talking about the various different levels of kavana, and including what you said about when someone has in mind only.
I have an example of it.
Yeah.
It's like a person, let's say, he's taking care of an almana, a very elderly lady, does her shopping, and takes care of her, and lo and behold, it was known that she has a multi-million-dollar estate. And she's about, any day she might, and so maybe his motivation was that she would be so pleased that he's taking care of her, and then she would write a will for him, whatever it is.
מתוך שלא לשמה, יצא לשמה.
So would you consider him? No one doesn't know his machshava. Only Kodesh Baruch Hu knows his intent.
Would I consider him what?
Well, everyone thinks he's a big tzaddik. No one doesn't know what's his intent.
Well,
but Klap the Rebbeinu Shalom, is he considered a tzaddik or what?
Okay, I don't know. This might be a little digressing. You're saying he's a tzaddik. Tzaddikim do mitzvahs. Which mitzvah has he done?
He did a chesed for this lady, let's say.
Which mitzvah is the mitzvah of chesed? There's 613 mitzvahs we have.
Obviously, sure.
He's my attorney.
Mitzvah Ahavas Yisrael. Ahavas Yisrael is a mitzvah which is in the heart.
I'm saying
Because there's no tzedakah. Yeah, but let's move on.
Yeah.
We're going to get there. Okay. Ach afal pi kein amru. 8 lines on the top of page 9. Still, our sages have told us, this is brought down in the Sfarim of the Arizal, in the Shalah, that tefillah eshar beracha b'lei kavana, that if you daven, or say a bracha without kavana, hin keguf b'lei neshama, it's like a guf without a neshama, like a body without a soul. Okay, so this is something we have to digest over here. We're saying here that a guf, that if you say a bracha or you daven without kavana, so it comes along the Arizal and the Shalah, and they'll tell you that it's like a body without a soul. What does that mean? Didn't we just establish that the main thing is the words? So Alter Rebbe is going to explain the body without a soul. That means we're going to have to examine what is a body and what is a soul. And we're going to realize that a mitzvah has a lot of value as a body, but it's still missing the soul. And we have to understand what is the advantage of a body with a soul without a body, and we also have to understand that a soul without a body is nothing. You can have the mitzvah, which is a body, and then the body can have a soul or not. But the soul itself isn't worth anything. That's what we're going to find out. So we're now going to go into what is the reason for the kavana mitzvah, why do you have to have the emotions? And this, as we might have mentioned in the past, this is very connected. In the Torah, there are two very enigmatic stories that are back to back. And they're in Parshas Bamidbar. One is the story of the Meraglim, and one is the story of Korach. And both of them are very strange stories. The story of the Meraglim is that Moshe goes and he sends out 12 spies to Eretz Yisrael, and as the Pasuk testifies, that Kulam Anashim, that these were people who were all people of great stature, and as Rashi says, Ksherim Hoyu, and it's quite clear that Moshe would not send on this all-important mission. He wouldn't send a bunch of lowlifes. He obviously chose well, and chose people who were spiritual people and holy people who were dedicated to the cause, people who were Talmidei Chachamim, and yet 10 out of 12 of them came back with this terrible negative report about Eretz Yisrael. It's really astounding. And what they said was astounding. We can't go in there. What do you mean? You just experienced all the miracles and everything. Hashem can't take us in there. We can't conquer the land. Eretz Yechelas Yisrael, the land eats up its inhabitants. It's too powerful for us. It's too strong for us. It's a very strange story. And these 10 people managed to incite all of Klal Yisrael against Moshe Rabbeinu. We heard the story many times. We learned it when we were children, and then when we grow up, we have to revisit it and just try to figure out, practically speaking,
What's going on?
how could that have happened? How could that have happened? Now we're talking barely a year after Yitzis Mitzrayim, after Matan Torah,
Or the Nissim.
all the Nisim and everything.
Tanya.
Well, their day again, and the Meraglim themselves were holy people. Okay, whatever happened to the Meraglim happens to the Meraglim. Shortly thereafter, next parsha is Korach. So here once again you have an individual, Korach, who is described as a pikach. Rashi says he's a wise individual. He apparently had Ruach HaKodesh also. The Medrash tells us that Korach was so special that he was Menaisei HaAron. We know in the members of Kahas, they carried the holy vessels. Now, you had a few people, of all the people, you had a few of them would carry the Aron, because they had to carry the Aron, they had to carry the Shulchan, they had to carry the Menorah. They carried the Aron. Obviously, who was chosen to carry the Aron was the most chashuv people. Korach was Menaisei HaAron. Korach, of the several thousand people who were in Kahas, he was one of the select few carried the Aron. And here he comes to Moshe and says, "Who are you? We're all holy. Why do we need you?" What do you mean, why do you? Where were you the last year and a half? Why did you need Moshe? Did you see everything that Moshe did and that he accomplished? And that even a simple Yid should have known that. Korach? Who is a holy person? Mizak, that the Chayz of Lublin, when he would talk about Korach, he would say, the Hilik is the Korach. The Chayz was a Levi. He was a holy person. So what happened? So that explains, if we look at it only, on the very simple level, it's very difficult to understand. But if we understand a little of the backdrop of what's going on, it makes a lot more sense. The Meraglim were sent into Israel to find out whether they can conquer Israel. They went to Israel, and what do they see over there? They see people, and they're plowing their fields, and they're harvesting their fields, and everyone has their little homestead. Everyone has their fig tree, and it's a whole agrarian culture. And they're like, we're coming from the desert, where we don't have to work for food, we don't have to work for drink, we don't have to work for clothing, we don't have to do battle against anyone, we don't have to worry about the enemies because we're guarded by the clouds. And that is the most incredible place to go and to serve Hashem, the desert, with no concerns and no material issues and no parnasa. We don't have to chase the dollar. We're going to come here into this land. He says, we can't conquer this land. The land is going to conquer us. We're not going to conquer the land and make this into holy land. The land is going to conquer us. We're going to become farmers. We're going to become Eretz Eichelos Yasher. We're going to be consumed by the land. Consumed by the land and by working the land. It's not the place to be a Yid. The place to be a Yid is in the desert, surrounded by the clouds. So they were coming from a very, very noble place and a very spiritual place. They're like, we want to daven, we want to learn, we want to serve Hashem, we want to be spiritual. And again, Moshe chose them because they were special spiritual people, and it was their holiness and their spirituality which actually led them to this conclusion that this is not the place where they should want to go. What was their mistake? The mistake was that they did not learn chapter 36 and 37 in Tanya. They've totally missed out on what Hashem wants of us. So talking about the Chayza, I think I might have told you this story before about the Chayza. It was 1 year after Yom Kippur. Told you this story?
No.
Say the beginning of it.
The Chayza, 1 year after Yom Kippur, he was sitting by the after Yom Kippur meal with all his students, and he turns to them and says, anyone wants, the Chayza was known as a very big Baal Ruach HaKodesh.
That's what's called the Chayza.
That's why it's called the Chayza, the seer, right? So anyone who wants, I'll tell you, you can volunteer, raise your hand, I'll tell you what you davened for today. I'll tell you what the response from heaven was to your tefillas. So one student raised his hand and says, okay, I'm volunteering. So Chayza says, you, okay. Here. What you davened for today was you told Hashem, listen, I have to work so hard. I'm not interested in working so hard. I want to serve you. So let's make a deal. Give me parnasa so that I have to work for one day a week, and I'll work that one day a week, and the rest of the week I'm going to daven, I'm going to learn. The student says, yeah, it's exactly what I davened for. And what was the response? So the Chayza says, the Malachim, as they were carrying up your tefillas to Hashem, they were laughing. And they're saying, what is this person thinking? That Hashem wants his davening and his learning? No, they want his krechts from when he's working. Hashem wants his krechts. He wants his sai from when they're working. You know, if Hashem wanted us to sit and daven and learn all day, and that's what he wanted, he would never put us down here in this world. He'd have left us in Gan Eden in the first place. He put us down in the world because he wanted us to engage with the world, and he wanted to do b'tachtonim. He wanted us to do mitzvahs, and most of the mitzvahs can be done only in Eretz Yisrael. Only in Eretz Yisrael, in the desert, with all the davening, with all the learning, most of the mitzvahs they weren't able to be done over there. And that was the big mistake of the Meraglim. They got stuck in the emotional elements of Yiddishkeit, and the spirituality, and the feeling holy, and the feeling all, feeling lofty, and they're forgetting, what does Hashem want from me? What does Hashem want from me? The women, by the way, they were the ones, they didn't fall for this. Women are always very practical. They're like, what does Hashem want of us? Hashem wants to go into Eretz Yisrael, and don't give me any Baba Maisis. We're going into Eretz Yisrael. And that's why the women were not part of the Gzeira that came upon them because of the Meraglim. So that was the story of the Meraglim. Shortly thereafter, according to Seder Olam, was very, very, very shortly thereafter, comes along Korach and says, 1 second. We always thought that what was important was the degree of love I have for Hashem, the degree of fear I have to Hashem, the degree of connection and the dveikus that I have to Hashem. How much Torah I know. And if that is the case, then I understand why Moshe and Aaron are so much more special than the rest of us. I understand why they are the leaders and we are the lay people. Because they're holier than us. They have a higher level of dveikus, of attachment to Hashem, and love of Hashem, and fear of Hashem, and a higher understanding of Hashem's greatness. But 1 second, didn't we just establish, that the mistake of the Meraglim was that they were prioritizing the spiritual over the actual mitzvah, when the main thing is actually going and doing a mitzvah, the act. Hamaiso Iker. If the main thing is the act, then Kol Edo Kulam Kedoshim. We're all holy. We all can do a mitzvah. We all can give the same coin to the tzedakah. We all can put up the same mezuzah. We all can eat the same matzah on Pesach. We can all eat the same kosher. So Madua Tisnasu Al Kal Hashem, who are you?
Why are you so special?
What makes you substantively greater than us if we all do mitzvahs? So the episode of Korach was a direct consequence of the story of the spies. It was the exact opposite. Korach says, we learned the lesson from the spies. We learned the lesson. They made this horrible, terrible mistake, but we learned the lesson. And therefore Korach was the original egalitarian. We're all the same. We're all the same. It's just interesting, the Korach is the paradigm of machlokes, of division. In Pirkei Avos it talks about what is a machlokes, which is not l'shem shamayim, is Korach. And in fact, the iser of making a machlokes, we learn from the pasuk of Lo ka Korach v'chadasei, and not allowed to be like Korach. But what did Korach really want to do? You think into it? He was an egalitarian. What do you mean? Why are you making divisions between everyone? We're all the same. And by saying we're all the same, he caused the biggest division. He caused the biggest machlokes. And that's just a general rule in life. Now, when everyone recognizes their place, then there can be unity and there can be harmony. When everyone says we're all the same, there is no division. That creates the ultimate machlokes, the ultimate division.
Why is it so?
Anyway, that's just a little. That was a side part.
Under that, didn't he want a certain position though? Under that
Logically,
veil of egalitarian,
logically.
it's like the real communists.
Right. Everyone should be equal, and I want to be a little more equal than everyone else.
Yeah,
Right.
Top people in companies, they all have money.
Some are more equal than others.
Yes. So what did Moshe respond to Korach? So Moshe responded to Korach. He told him He said, Boiker v'yoida Hashem eis asher lo. In the morning, Hashem will let everyone know who He has chosen. Why did He say Boiker? Why in the morning? Why is that important? So Rashi answers something to do with Keteris. Rashi gives another answer. Hashem made just divisions in this world. He made, there's morning and there's night, and just like you can't take away the division between morning and night, you can't take away the division between Aaron and the rest of Klal Yisrael, which are also Hashem made separate. The Rebbe explains that according to Chassidus, the idea of Boiker, light, is that Moshe, the message that Moshe was telling Korach is, you're right, that the main thing is the mitzvah. But the question is there Boiker in your mitzvah? Is there light in your mitzvah?
It's the guf without the neshama.
Is there a neshama to your mitzvah? And that's why we need this hierarchy in Klal Yisrael. That's why Moshe and Aaron are greater, even though everyone does the mitzvah, because the mitzvahs of Moshe and Aaron have more boiker in them, more light, more neshama. And moreover, the purpose of Moshe and Aaron is to help all the Yidden, to help that every single one should have a greater neshama in their mitzvah. And this is going to be what we're going to be talking about for the next few chapters, this idea. Without the mitzvah, there's nothing. Without the mitzvah, there is no connection. Everything that was the fatal mistake of the Meraglim. They're not going to do the mitzvahs. If you're not going to do the mitzvahs, you're not connected to Hashem. You have no mitzvah. You're not connected. And the connection is dafka through a mitzvah, which is a physical mitzvah, whether with a physical act or through using your mouth. Once, however, the mitzvah is done and the connection is there, how brilliant is that connection? How luminescent is that connection? Or to put it in somewhat different words, there is a connection and there's a relationship. The connection to Hashem is through the mitzvah. The relationship with Hashem, as in
It's the emotions.
as in the kir, the relationship. Relationship means kir. What does the word relationship mean?
What's care? What is a care?
Kir, C-A-R-E, to care for someone else.
Care for somebody.
Right?
Else, yeah.
The relationship comes with the kavana. You can have a mitzvah which is a dead mitzvah. What does that mean, a dead? You're connected to Hashem when you did the mitzvah.
Physical connection.
And that is the foundation of everything. Hamayso wa'ikar. Without the mitzvah, you have nothing. If you have all the kavana and all the love and all the fear, but if you have only that, then you have zero. You need to have the mitzvah. The mitzvah creates the connection. But how much life are you infusing in that connection? How much of your relationship with Hashem are you infusing in the mitzvah? That's what the purpose of the kavana is. Hashem wants not only that you should be connected to Hashem, but that your connection to Him should be revealed. Apparent. It should be boiker. It should be as apparent and as light as the day. And that's where the Ava V'yir is going to come, and that's where the fear and the love of Hashem is going to feature very, very importantly. And obviously, as Chabad Hasidim, this is very important to us. You know, what is Chabad all about? Chabad, as we know, is about activating the mind, the intellectual powers. But the purpose of that is to awaken the heart, to awaken the feelings and emotions of the heart, and ultimately, which leads to thought, deed, and action. So Chabad obviously isn't of the opinion that kavana, that the Av and Vira aren't anything, but rather they are important. But as we'll learn a little later in next Perek, that the Av and Vira that Alter Rebbe is going to bring down from the Zohar are like the two wings of a mitzvah. Every mitzvah has two wings. One is the Ava Hashem, the love, and one is the Yira, the fear. And these two wings carry the mitzvah up above. What does it mean? It gives it its spiritual and holy.
Uplifting.
Sorry?
Uplifting.
It uplifts it, right? It gives it a substance, a spiritual substance. So this is nothing we're going to say now is going to negate what we said earlier. Because at the end of the day, the Hamaisa huwa ikar. The connection is through the mitzvah, but we would like to have a mitzvah which is alive and which is vibrant. And the Alter Rebbe is going to analyze this idea of that a davening or a bracha without kavana is kaguf b'lei neshama, is like a body without a soul. What does that mean?
After davening or any regular?
Sorry? Tefillah ishar bracha b'lei kavana, kaguf b'lei neshama. But the truth is, it's also about every mitzvah, but more specifically about tefillah and other brachas.
Primarily, it's supposed to. kavana. Otherwise, what is?
So what is the Nikuda in this?
They have to be interconnected, like body and the soul connect together. Same thing.
What is the difference between a body and a soul?
You want to know this? It's the emotional part of
Choya
physical.
body is nothing. The guf is nothing.
Both the Rebbe is going to explain that both the body and the soul,
There's nothing. It's only good for the ground. That's all it's good for.
both the body and the soul receive their energy, their vitality, their existence, have within it energy from Hashem within it. When we say the body and the soul, we don't just necessarily mean the human body and the human soul. Everything in this world has a body and has a soul. And both the body and the soul derive from Hashem. Because we live in this world, and this world is a world of klipa, therefore the Hashem, the godly energy that's in the body and in the soul, are equally hidden. So for example, if you look at a plant, so the plant has a body, the plant also has a soul. And that's why if you cut the plant off, you snip it, so the soul is gone. It's not alive anymore, but the body is still there. The fact that the body is still there is obviously because there's divine energy which is keeping it in existence now also. So there's divine energy in the body, there's divine energy in the soul. But if I look at a cat running in the street, do I see Hashem?
No.
No. Not in the body and not in the soul. However, at the same time, can we say that there's an equal amount of divine energy in the body and in the soul? Also not. There is much more divine energy in the soul than there is in the body. That's why there's much more divine energy in a cat than there is in a rock, because a rock is only a body. There is divine energy in the rock, but it's mamish at a very, very minimum. There's a minimal amount of energy in the rock, whereas the higher the life form, and specifically when you say the higher the life form, we're talking about the soul of the life form, because the body of the life form is all really the same thing. There's no difference in the bodies. The difference is in the souls. The higher the life form, the more godly energy and the godly vitality, divine vitality there is in that item. So there is difference between the body and soul. There's a difference how much divine energy there's in there. But there is no difference in terms of their concealment. It's equally concealed in body and the soul. The difference is only, in the words of the Tanya, as we'll learn, is in tzimtzum v'hispashtos, which means tzimtzum is how contracted the light is, or how much v'hispashtos, which means how much the light extends, God's light extends in it. Drawing this analogy to doing a mitzvah or to davening and learning, the Alter Rebbe says the same thing. The kavana is like the soul, and the body of the mitzvah, or the words of the mitzvah, is like the body. Different, however, we're going to do this Mir Hashem at length next week. I'm just giving you a little sneak preview. Different than the body and soul in this physical world, where over here there's ultimate concealment on both of them. In a mitzvah, there is zero concealment in both the body and the soul. The difference between them is, in Tzimtzum V'Hispashtos, how much revelation of godly light is there? There's more revelation of godly light in the kavana than in the mitzvah itself. That's going to be the analogy, which obviously we'll explore.
How do you experience that?
Which we will explore at length, God willing, next week.
To be continued.
To be continued.